You can move it down and put it back on the computer. Is that okay?
Yep.
Am I good?
Yeah, just let your head down just a little bit. Yeah, that's good.
3, 2. Oh wait, I need to. 3, 2, 1. We're joined by Scott Paul, the president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing, headquartered in Washington, D.C. Paul, thank you so much for joining us here on PMA Perspective.
Carl, good to be with you today.
I wanted to just jump right into our conversation. Two big issues at hand here, steel dumping and the recent episodes of Chinese espionage on some American manufacturing firms and some union groups. First of all, can you just explain to the viewers what steel dumping is and what some of the issues are with this?
I'd be happy to. And it's no surprise to your viewers that the steel industry has played a rich part of Pennsylvania's history and economy for a long period of time. And there are still substantial steel operations in many parts of the state, including western Pennsylvania. This is a competitive industry. It's shrunk a lot since its heyday, but it's highly efficient, highly skilled workforce. The companies have made great investments in their Pennsylvania facilities. They have good access to natural resources with coal, iron ore, natural gas, and a good market here in the United States. But there's one thing they depend on that's kind of out of their control, and that's a level playing field with other countries. And increasingly, we have seen a lot of foreign dumped steel come into the U.S. market, primarily from countries like China and South Korea. Now, these South Korean firms or Chinese firms, they don't make better steel. They don't make steel more efficiently. But they do receive a lot of government support, and they are able to dump steel at below cost, the cost of making it, into the U.S. market. So what does that mean fundamentally for steel workers and steel companies in Pennsylvania? It means they lose market share. It means they lose profits. It means they will have to lay people off. And in particular, just within the last month or so, we've seen the announcement of a steel mill closing in McKeesport, Pennsylvania, for precisely that reason, not because it wasn't an efficient steel mill, but because we see this dumping into the U.S. market, and we haven't seen any relief provided for our companies just yet.
What are some of the countries that are doing this steel dumping, and are there any major offenders?
It's a really good question, and if you were going to point fingers at a couple of countries and their practices, it would be China and it would be South Korea. Of the largest 46 steel companies in the world, half of them are owned wholly or in part by the Chinese government, and they account for about 40% of global steel production. And Carl, they're not making steel to serve a market, they're making steel to serve their own domestic employment, so they don't care how much is made, where it goes, but at the end of the day, it impacts jobs in the United States. Now, South Korea is also a country that has heavy government involvement in its industry, a complex web of business relationships there. And even though South Korea doesn't do any domestic exploration for oil or natural gas, it has dumped a huge amount of pipe and tube into the U.S. market, including into western Pennsylvania and Ohio, for that very purpose, even though we have lots of steel companies that make very competitive pipe who are just miles away from where this exploration has taken place. And the challenge is these companies just can't say stop it. They depend on our government to do that for them.
And that steel pipe has been coming into Pennsylvania and West Virginia because that's where the big energy plays are right now with the Marcellus Shale.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and we should be seeing a lot of promise there. Energy independence should equal manufacturing jobs in the United States of America, but unfortunately what we've seen is these other countries take advantage of the very open market in the United States, dump the product, and under our trade laws, the industry and the workers have to first demonstrate that they've been harmed, and there's very compelling evidence that that's the case. then they have to file a case that winds its way through a judicial process before they get any relief and have to hope they can hang on in the meantime. To me, that's not the way to do things. I think we need to be more proactive, and so that we ensure that all that gas that's coming out of the Marcellus Shale is in fact being transmitted and explored with pipe made by workers in Pennsylvania. That's where you get the jobs from.
Agreed, agreed. So you mentioned China as one of the main offenders. Several months ago we learned of some serious allegations and some indictments really from that the Chinese government was doing espionage with some companies, especially some major manufacturers in Pennsylvania. Can you give us a little bit of background on that?
Absolutely. So it's not a surprise to anybody that the Chinese military has been involved with cyber hacking or spying. I mean, I think that's pretty well known. It's targeted well over 4,000 different organizations and businesses in the United States. But in Western Pennsylvania, the federal prosecutor was able to bring charges and trace a line back to 5 Chinese military officials who operate out of a unit in a specific building outside of Shanghai. And the indictment says that these officials specifically targeted United States Steel, Allegheny Technologies, Westinghouse, Solar World, the United Steelworkers, and there might have been 1 or 2 other parties to that in an attempt to both glean confidential information, to disrupt their operations, and to gain pricing insight, all of which are very, very valuable to Chinese companies and potentially very detrimental to the fortune of these U.S. companies, their workers, and obviously puts them at a security risk as well. So I'm glad that these indictments came down, but it shows that this is just the tip of the iceberg. We need to have a balanced, fair, mutually beneficial relationship with China. But if we have one side that is having government-sanctioned spying against our workers and our companies, we got to push back on that. And so the judicial proceeding will carry on. I don't know that we'll ever see these 5 officials brought to Pittsburgh for a trial, but it shows that we have a lot of work to do and that we need to stand up and push back to make sure that we do have fair competition in the United States and fair opportunity in China.
So these are really 2 different issues here, the steel dumping and the espionage. But do you think that these 2 situations in any way are connected? What are your thoughts on that?
It's a really good question, and I don't know that you can connect the dots from A to B, but I will say that they are both symptoms of a larger challenge, Carl, that our companies face. And it's this: no matter how skilled our workforces are, no matter how innovative our companies are, no matter how smart the decisions that the managers are, we still depend on good policy and a level playing field. That means good policy on taxes. That means investing in our infrastructure. It also means with our trading partners to push back at the right time when we need to. And that's the thing where I think we can do the most good for some of these companies that face a lot of imports into the U.S. markets. And if we don't have that government pushback, we'll continue to see some manufacturing job loss at a time that should be very hopeful because of the energy boom and because of other factors, the success of the auto industry in the United States. We have a lot working in our favor, but unless we get that level playing field, we're going to have a lot of missed opportunities as well.
Scott, thank you so much for your insights. I learned a lot today, and I hope our viewers did as well. Where can people go to learn more about you and your organization and what you guys are doing?
Sure. Well, we're on the web at americanmanufacturing.org. We're on Twitter at KeepItMadeInUSA, and we do engage. We do a lot of meetings and rallies in Pennsylvania. We have bipartisan support there. We appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today, Carl, and we think that there's great potential for American manufacturing if we can get folks involved, engaged, and in contact with our public officials.
Perfect. Scott, thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you, Carl.
Cut. Awesome.
Okay.
Oh, all right, that's it. I
You
thought
good?
that went very well. If
Yeah.
anything that you wanted to hit that we didn't go over?
No, I think that was it. Other than obviously providing the explanation for the South Korea trade
Yep.
ruling will be
Yep.
very helpful. So
Yep.
yeah, awesome, great.
Hey, thank you so much, Scott, and let's keep in touch. And best of luck with everything.
Yeah, sounds good, Carl. Thanks
right.
for the opportunity. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, bye.